What's up, everybody? It's Keefy. You're watching another 5-minute review from GhostCultMag.com. Today, we are going to review the brand new album from Metallica, 72 Seasons, out now everywhere. Depending on where you are in the world, you have probably already heard it or are listening to it right now. But if you want to see what other people think, people who have followed Metallica for 37, 38 years, like I have, definitely check out this review. I just came from the movie theater, the AMC Metreon in San Francisco, my HQ, my hometown at the moment, where I live, not where I'm from, but where I live in the mentals and also physically. And I heard the whole album with a whole audience of people, and I gotta say, it was epic. It was an epic experience. Metallica, everything they do is first class. Clearly, if you are a Metallica hater and not a Metallica lover, you will not like this record just right off the bat. If you're just over Metallica, I haven't listened to Metallica since Injustice for All, took the bass out. That's cool. This record is not for you. If you are a fan, if you are just interested in to see what this band is doing at almost, 43 years almost and 60 years of age, some of these guys in the band, you check this record out. Personally, in a word, it was awesome. It really is a great album, I have to say. I am not pleasantly surprised. I had very high hopes based on the singles we've already heard. The album has 12 tracks, and we've only heard 4 of them publicly, and so nothing leaked. I know there were a couple of record stores that put the record on the shelves early, the CD and the vinyl. It was very weird stuff, but I think Metallica was kind of prepared for potential leaks, but it was already out hours ago in other parts of the world. So the Metallica album is here. Happy Metallica Day. And we will cover more Metallica stuff on the upcoming Weekly Ritual news show, which will be our next stream right after this. So, but we're going to give you a little review. Typically, we call this the 5-minute review. This will be longer than 5 minutes, of course. And unlike my news show, I'm not going to comment or take questions on any of the socials. I'm just going to do the review, give you my thoughts, share my initial impressions and my feelings, and then we will have a longer review at ghostcoldman.com in the next day or so. I'm gonna. What happened here? I had my banner all ready to go. And now I have it all ready to go. I spared you all the clickety clack of my keyboard. Let's put the banner in. Hey, here we go. So typically we did these all last year, and these would be, shot in advance and edited and produced with fun graphics and all kinds of stuff. But this is just raw Keefy and Ghost Cult Man goodness here. So 72 Seasons. What can I say? I'll skip talking about the film experience because I don't know that they're going to re-show that or do it again, but it was really fun and, again, really well done, where the band explained in between every song what the songs are about and gave some feedback on some musical passages and the proficiency of the band and different things, who loved what and whose favorite song is what. But I heard that, but I was really taking notes the whole time on my phone and just soaking in, especially the songs I didn't know. So I want to focus a little bit on the stuff we are hearing for the first time with new ears after 4 months of singles. And I have to say, man, it's a pretty excellent record. Judging this along the lines of their greatest stuff, it's definitely not, in league with Master of Puppets or Injustice for All, or If You Love the Black Album. It is, however, heavily influenced by new wave of British heavy metal, early Metallica thrash metal, Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, and a lot of 70s heavy metal. I hear a lot of Black Sabbath in this record. I hear a lot of Dio in this record. I hear a lot of Rainbow, proto heavy metal in this record. And then there's some just outright heavy ass songs. I think, we used to say there was a kind of a school of thought that Metallica used to write their albums mostly in order, and the last song on the album was always kind of the last thing they did. And, obviously Dyer's Eve didn't have much to do with the Black Album, but My Friend of Misery absolutely had, and Struggle Within, those last couple of songs on the Black Album definitely sounded like the direction Load and Reload were going in. So if you want to take Spit Out the Bone from Hardwired and really judging this latest arc of Metallica, I know there's a lot of space between records, between Death Magnetic, Hardwired, and this record, but these 3 records taken together, this is the next logical step. It's a thrash heavy metal record. And that's where Metallica's brain is living. And I don't expect them to reinvent the wheel and make a brand new thing we never heard before and experiment much. There's definitely some new sounds, some new timbers. James's singing is absolutely phenomenal, but I expect nothing less. There's even some, probably the most sophisticated and best vocal harmonies I have ever heard on a Metallica record right off the bat. James's vocals are amazing on this, and lyrics. It's a concept record, the very first Metallica concept record ever, and so they really delved very deep into this in the premiere and talked about the concept, and really went at length. James talked at length about just this whole setup that he came up with. He's been brewing some of this stuff for a very long time lyrically, and talking about his own trauma, his own personal struggles, and how maybe the first 18 years of your life, 72 seasons, stays with you forever, actually, and shapes and guides and moves you in certain ways. And a lot of these songs are very wistful and philosophical and poetic, on a level that I don't think we've even gotten before from James. So kudos to James. Of course, there's going to be riff salads, good beats from Lars, a lot of up-tempo tracks. I'd say about half the record is fast. Pretty fast, up-tempo heavy metal and speed metal. Not the fastest stuff they've ever played, but fast, right? And really great chugging down-pick riffs. And then there's a lot of stuff on the record that's halftime, so it's not slow, but there's a few slower songs or slower parts of songs. But there's definitely a lot of half-tempo stuff. If you love King Nothing and Cyanide and Enter Sandman and Sad But True, there's a lot of that on here for you. And The Thing That Should Not Be. I heard a couple of things that reminded me of like that era of Metallica, Thing That Should Not Be, Master of Puppets. And of course, they've been on the road when they did the 40th anniversary shows. They played the Black Album in its entirety. They did the whole old school set for Johnny and Marsha Zazula. And I think that's been their mindset coming into this record the last couple of years. They admitted that they have been working on this record for a few years. They've been very tight-lipped about this process, but they've been working on this stuff for a while. And so, they weren't going to put out something lame. It's definitely angry and fierce and emotional, all those things you expect from a Metallica record. A few other notes. Of course, standout bass playing from Robert Trujillo. He's got a couple of parts that really feature him. One I would technically term a bit of a solo, but not entirely lead-like, but just a very methodical, cool solo. Kirk Hammett's playing is on a whole nother level. There's a couple of moments of absolute shred that will take you back to the glory days of Kirk in Metallica, the great first four and Black Album even. And then there's a lot of stuff on here that's very thematic and melodic. I would say it's akin to Joe Perry or Jimmy Page type of textural guitar solos that are not necessarily the most flashy, but they serve the song. And also, I'm going to say, one thing that really impressed me about this record is this really sounds like a collaborative written affair. I really need to dig into the credits, but it seems like Kirk has as many writing credits as he's ever had. He's come up with entire parts of songs, including the main riff to 72 Seasons is Kirk's invention. They let Robert write his own parts and bring in parts that made the songs, not just James and Lars dominating the writing process. It really is as much of a band album as they would have done since the Mustaine and Cliff days, where they were all kind of bringing in stuff. So I think this is a really interesting record for Metallica fans to absorb. And like I said, we've heard 4 of these songs. There's a lot of material on here we have not heard. So I'm going to give a little bit of some rundowns. I took some notes in the theater, and I'm going to share some of those with you. First and foremost, if you're looking to key in on some tracks that we didn't hear yet before the album was dropped, Sleepwalk My Life Away, You Must Burn, with an exclamation point, Crown of Barbed Wire, Chasing Light, Too Far Gone, Room of Mirrors, arguably the heaviest and best song on this record, and Inamorata, which I've said wrong many times, but it's Inamorata, which is the epic final closing track, the longest Metallica song ever, at over 10, I think it's 11, almost 11 minutes, and it is just a beautiful, epic song to close the album. Metallica always does a great job on these album closers, right? So yeah, again, like if you're a hater or you're, listen, if you're looking for cutting edge thrash, Overkill has a record out today. We just did a 5-minute review. I'll link it in the description yesterday, and it's phenomenal. And that record to me is more of like an 8 or a 9. This record, it has some incredible moments and some incredible songs. Is it a blistering all the way through? Is it the best thing they ever did? No, but it's a very accomplished record and it has incredible, memorable songs. Metallica writes great songs. That's why they're not just the greatest selling band in rock and metal history. They write great songs. This is just what it is. They were talking about it. They write songs in my, like, I can't wait for people to hear When Darkness Had a Sun live and everybody's going to sing and scream those lyrics in the crowd. Like, that's what they write for. Like Queen used to write for, when they first did stadiums, they changed the way they wrote songs because they anticipated the crowd response on the choruses. And that's when Metallica's at that level. There's very few bands to me. Black Sabbath, Queen, Led Zeppelin, Metallica. It's a short list. Pink Floyd have that kind of effect on fans. But I'm just going to give a couple of notes on some of those songs I ran down. Shadows Follow is also, I need to hear it a few more times. It was a little bit of a, in parts, it was really Standout, and then there was other parts out that didn't grab me too hard, but Shadows Follow is another song. So there's a lot of deep cuts, and so I usually judge an album the way I write, the way I review. I've been writing reviews for 20 years. I studied musicology in college. I played in metal and rock bands for 20 plus years, and I went to music school as a kid, so I know a thing or two about music. It's not just me shouting out my opinion on the interwebs like a lot of people. I come from a culture of critique. My mom was a teacher and a dance teacher and instructor also. So I learned a lot of this from her. This is where I get this from. So if you're wondering why I do what I do, that's why I do what I do and how I do it. And so there's also a lot of tempo changes on this record and a lot of, I said riff salad at the top. And there's a lot of, like, very, I don't want to say progressive metal, but progressive riffs in the songs where they change keys, they change tempos back and forth. There are entire parts of solos kind of reminding me a little bit of Megadeth. One of the hallmarks of Megadeth, if you're a big Megadeth fan, is that Dave always has a different guitar part. Even when it's like the song repeats over and over, and you think, oh, they're playing the main chorus riff or the main verse riff while the solo is going on. But actually, he's like creatively adding little extra things into the rhythm you don't quite catch until you re-listen many times. And Metallica has some of that on here. And, listen, there's two guitar players, Kurt writing his own parts and maybe bringing in whole parts of songs himself, and them actually letting him contribute like a real team player. I think that has a lot to do with it also. And so, yeah, just, bringing that out. And really, like I said, it feels like a band album, this new Metallica. It feels like a whole band made this record. And that's the first time, honestly, I can think of since the glory days, the early days, which is great. Doesn't make up, this is, again, just objectively, is it the best stuff they ever did? No. Is it a bunch of 60-year-old guys in a 40-plus-year-old band making the best music they can? Yes, it is. So, I'm not going to give them a badge for showing up, but I think you got to understand the expectations of the record. I expected the overkill with like Jason Bittner and Blitz and Dee Dee Verney to be like one of the best thrash records of this year. And it's a definitely superior record to this. That record to me is almost a 9 possibly. And it's phenomenal. You should go check it out. That's Scorched. Then again, check out our 5-minute review of that. Yesterday, we have a long form review on our site. So a lot of really great songs, a lot of really, again, heavy metal, new album, new wave of British heavy metal was talked about a lot in this premiere, a lot of Sabbathy riffs, and, that's where they're living. So it's kind of a different animal than Hardwired. Hardwired was a little more, it was heavy metal, but it was a little more like insistent thrash all the way through, with a few straight up heavy metal songs. And this album's a lot more varied. So there's definitely a real journey on this record. And, listen, a 77-minute album is very self-indulgent for any band. But Metallica being Metallica, everything they do is self-indulgent. That's what they do. That's what they do. I also want to shout out Shadows Follow at the end of the song has a riff that kind of sounds like the Batman theme, like a little noodle. I don't know if it was on purpose, but yeah, it's pretty fun. Again, we know the singles. Just judging from what I've heard, obviously, look, Lux Eterna and If Darkness Had a Sun are two of the best songs on the album. Screaming Suicide is a close third. But like I said, there's a lot of depth on this record. So there's a few other songs that are equal to those, which is great because I usually judge, I started to say this before, I usually judge an album like if only the singles are good, and the singles are loaded toward the front half of this record, to be honest. Usually, you get a few good songs on a whole album. But I would say there's deep cuts on this record that I think will be growers, not showers. And I think there's a few songs the equal of anything we had heard before the release. I talked about the Hetfield Harmonies. I talked about all the guitar stuff. There's a lot of twin guitar solos on here. Thin Lizzy and Iron Maiden influence. I know Iron Maiden is essentially a peer of Metallica, but they were a little bit before Metallica. New wave of British heavy metal predated thrash in America, of course. So there's a lot of twin harmony leads on here. But Kirk really solos through most of the album. This kind of makes up for some of the lacking solos in a few albums past. And there's a solo in just about every song, and they're all pretty great, pretty memorable, as I mentioned before. And just talking about a few other points. I just want to look through my notes here. There's a little spoken word part. I think the spoken word part in Screaming Suicide stands out now. I've heard it a few times, and I think it's a real highlight of the album. Sleepwalk My Life Away has a tremendous tribal drum and bass intro that I think is going to hook a lot of people. That's one of the best tracks. Very similar to, my notes say, Cyanide or King Nothing style Stomp. So I think that's pretty great. I love that song a lot so far. Talked about Shadows Follow. Talked about Screaming Suicide. Sleepwalk My Life Away mentioned. You Must Burn. Tremendous opening riff a la classic Black Sabbath or even Black Sabbath with Dio. And phenomenal lyrics and vocals on that song. Again, one of the best tracks on side one if you're on vinyl or cassette. Crown of Barbed Wire, also great. Another kind of tribally beat and really mid-tempo song, kind of very COC, a little bit of load, reload, COC worship there, Sabbath worship, which, again, I won't complain about. Even a little stoner doom there sometimes, a little bit of that doom metal. And Chasing Light is another, as I mentioned, really thrash heavy metal song with a heavy ending, like super heavy ending. So yeah, man, overall, this record's excellent. I'd say I would give it an 8 just on the first listen. I have to really spend some more time with this. There'll be a more in-depth review on my podcast, the Glacial Musical Podcast, coming up this weekend. But just on the first listen, I really was impressed with what I heard. There was a lot to pull out of it. If you're a hater, I can't help you. You're just going to hate on it. Metallica sucks. Okay, yeah. Metallica is not making brand new music that's going to be the best things they ever did in there, Maybe this will be their favorite record. I doubt it. But, they already made Master of Puppets. It's like Slayer didn't have to make Rain and Blood twice. They already made it, So I'm not defending them, but I'm saying there's a lot of stuff here. If you want to spend time with it, I think it's probably a grower. I would give it at least an 8. I'll be interested to see what our reviewer at our site gives it. He's a pretty excellent reviewer and a very tough cookie sometimes on these bands. So that's our review. Certainly not 5 minutes, about 15 on the clock. Drop a comment if you've already heard the Metallica album, 72 Seasons, and let us know what you think of it. Let us know what you thought of this review. We do read every comment. We try to reply to them all. We appreciate you for being here. I am Ghost Cult Keefy. I will be back very soon with the Weekly Ritual. But thanks for watching the 5-minute review of Metallica's 72 Seasons. I'm Keefy, and I want you to stay as metal as humanly possible.